Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a huge idea, one that's super influential but also, honestly, really misunderstood in modern biology. It's all about a radical shift in how we see evolution, like who's really in the driver's seat.
All right, so let's kick things off with a massive question, one that philosophers and scientists have argued about forever. Are we born selfish? Now, the perspective we're digging into today says that, yeah, from a biological standpoint, the answer is yes. But hold on, because it's probably not the kind of selfishness you're picturing.
See, to get this, you first have to wrestle with this giant puzzle at the heart of evolution. I mean, if it's all about survival of the fittest, this brutal competition, then why would any animal sacrifice itself for another? It just doesn't seem to make sense. And yet, we see it all over the place in nature. And this really shows you the two extremes, right? On one hand, you've got this raw, brutal side of nature. I mean, literally pushing your buddy into the water to see if a seal is there. But on the other hand, you have these incredible acts of self-sacrifice, like a worker bee that dies just to protect the hive. So how can both of these things be true? How can both of these strategies survive?
Well, what if the problem isn't with the answer, but with the question itself? What if we've been asking the wrong question all along? The solution here means we have to completely flip the script on how we look at evolution. We might have been focusing on the wrong character in this whole story. Okay, so let's dive into this new perspective. This is the big idea. Forget what you've heard about evolution being for the good of the species, or even for the good of the individual. That's not the main goal.
You know, we naturally think of ourselves, the individual animals, the people, as the stars of the show. We're the main characters in the story of life, right? Well, from this viewpoint, not so much. We're more like temporary vessels, just short-lived vehicles passing through time. Because the real main characters, the true protagonists of this story, are our genes. Think about it. They're the immortal replicators, these tiny pieces of code that get passed on and on and on. And our bodies, we're just the incredibly elaborate machines they've built to make more copies of themselves. And that brings us to this powerful concept. We are survival machines. Basically, everything about us, our behaviors, our instincts, even those acts of kindness that seem so selfless, are all, at their root, strategies programmed by our genes to help them survive and replicate. A gene couldn't care less about the individual machine, as long as its code gets passed on to the next generation.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds kind of grim, right? Like we're all just mindless robots carrying out our genetic programming. But here's the powerful twist. The source makes it clear that this isn't a life sentence. In fact, by understanding what our genes are up to, we humans get a unique chance to disrupt their plans. We can actually choose to override the program.
So, if everyone is just a vehicle for selfish genes, you'd expect total chaos, right? A world of constant, destructive fighting. So how does any kind of stability emerge? Well, the answer, surprisingly, comes from game theory. Let's imagine a super simple scenario with just two types of behavior. You've got hawks who always fight hard, and you've got doves who are peaceful and back down from a fight. Now, a hawk against a dove, the hawk always wins. Easy. But a hawk against another hawk? Uh-oh. That's a huge risk. Someone could get seriously hurt. So what's the winning play? What happens over time is that the population doesn't become all hawks or all doves. That would be unstable. Instead, it settles into a stable mix of the two. This is what's called an evolutionarily stable strategy, or an ESS. It's a strategy that, once most of the population is doing it, simply can't be beaten by any other new strategy trying to invade. It might not be the absolute best outcome for every single individual, but it's stable. It's a balance that holds. All right, so that explains how you can get a stable balance of aggression and peace. But what about real, genuine cooperation? Let's look at how that can actually emerge from pure self-interest, using another really famous thought experiment. Okay, picture this. You and your partner in crime get caught. The police separate you, and they offer you both the exact same deal. If you rat out your partner and they stay quiet, you walk free. If you both rat each other out, you both get a medium sentence. But if you both stay silent, if you cooperate with each other, you both get off with a really light sentence. Now, if you know you'll only ever face this situation once, the cold, hard logic says you should always betray your partner. It's the only rational move. But of course, that means you both end up worse off than if you just cooperate.
But here's the twist.
What happens if you know you're going to interact with this person over and over and over again? Suddenly, that shadow of the future changes everything. All of a sudden, your reputation really, really matters.
So people actually ran huge computer tournaments to figure out the absolute best strategy for this repeating game. And you know what won? It wasn't some super complex, sneaky algorithm. Nope, it was one of the simplest strategies submitted. It's called tit for tat. And here's why tit for tat works so well. First, it's nice. It always starts by cooperating, by offering an olive branch. Second, it's retaliatory. If you betray it, it will immediately betray you back on the very next move. No hesitation. But third, and this is crucial, it's forgiving. The second you start cooperating again, it forgives you and goes right back to cooperating too. It doesn't hold a grudge. So it's nice, but it's no sucker. This simple set of rules creates trust and cooperation over the long run, and it's a perfect example of an evolutionarily stable strategy. This is how you get cooperation, what we call reciprocal altruism, to evolve in a world of fundamentally selfish genes. Okay, so this all brings us to what makes us humans, well, so different. We're not just running on our genetic hardware. Our brains have cooked up a totally new kind of replicator, one that moves way, way faster than genes. And these are memes. Now, I know what you're thinking, funny cat pictures, but long before the internet, the term was coined to describe any unit of culture that replicates by jumping from one brain to another. Think about a catchy song you can't get out of your head, a new fashion trend, or a scientific idea. These are all memes, competing for space and evolving in the giant soup of human culture, moving at lightning speed compared to genes. And this leads to what is, for me, the most hopeful and powerful message in all of this. Yes, we are built as gene machines, but we are also cultured as meme machines. And because of that, we have the power to turn against our original creators. Think about it. We are the only species on this planet that can do this. Our ability to think ahead, to learn from our culture, to share ideas, it gives us this incredible power. We can actually understand our own genetic programming, those selfish impulses, and we can make a conscious choice to act differently. We can choose to be genuinely, truly altruistic. And so that leaves us with this huge, fascinating question to chew on. Our genes built us to be selfish survival machines, but our minds, our culture, give us the ability to choose to be altruistic. So what will we choose to become? We're the product of billions of years of ruthless genetic competition, but we're also the only ones who can see the code and decide to write a new line. The future of our own nature, it seems, is a choice that's entirely up to us.